Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Unmasked Crusaders. This is the weekly podcast live stream by Ralph Usatola, JD, and Rima E. Lebo, MD. Dr. Rima will be with us momentarily. We are live streamed over YouTube, and we have our audio internationally broadcast over People for People Radio Network. We thank them for this opportunity. In the meantime, it is indeed a strange time that we live in. They are, as the Chinese curse used to say, interesting times. Of course, we seem to be living in a Chinese curse in several ways. Tonight's program will feature Zach, a Google whistleblower. We'll also, of course, have Dr. Rima Lebo on to ask incisive questions and bring important information to us. I see we have images popping on our screen. That's good. That means the folks are getting ready to start the People for People live stream. I'd like to start with those of you who may join us and have joined us. As I see from my screen here, we're using a program called Prism, which allows me to set up these little screens, screenshots and links and whatnot. That easily puts us out over the YouTube system. At the same time, our friends at People for People Radio Network are taking the audio, or at least will be in a minute or two, and sending that over their system as well. If you go to opensourcetruth.com, you'll find out how to join People for People Network and listen to the audio. Otherwise, if you're here on the YouTube live stream, welcome to be here. We are happy to reach you in numerous ways. We have Dr. Rima Lebo as, of course, the co-host, and as you see, if you're watching the YouTube stream, there is a screen waiting for her face. Let me tell you a little bit. There she is. Hello, Dr. Rima. All right. There's a screen including her face. All right. Welcome, Dr. Rima. You are live. And I'm telling the folks that our guests in a half an hour or so will be Zach and Marianne. Zach is a whistleblower. He will tell us some extraordinary things about one of the companies that controls our access to information, Google.
May I
Yes.
interrupt you, Rob? He will tell us about a lawsuit involving one of the companies that wants to be one of the companies that controls our access to information. That only happens because we are allowing it foolishly.
Indeed, Dr. Rima, absolutely. True statement, true statement. So we're going to start at the build this program. And if you're not on the Dr. Rima email list, you need to get on it right away. Go to opensourcetruth.com. There's right there in the top of the main screen, a couple of inches down, there's a place you can sign up. You need to be on the list. And if you were on the list, you would know things that no one else knows other than people who make the list. So who are they, by the way? They're not just Dr. Rima and myself. They are some extraordinary individuals from places as far away as Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. And they are people who have strong points of view and important information. Go ahead, Dr. Rima.
And they're not always points that Ralph and I agree with, but they're important points of view. We think that's an important part of information education. We don't have to provide only our point of view. We have to provide intelligent, vigorous discussion points of view. I want to point out that if you are on our mailing list, and I hope you are, you may suddenly discover that you're not getting any emails from us. That's because periodically Google and Yahoo and the other internet service providers will lop off 10, 20, 30,000 people from our list at a time. Chop, chop, chop. So if you don't hear from us.
And the folks
Okay.
on YouTube, tell me
All right.
early here.
Hi,
All right.
Can you hear me very well?
I can hear
yes.
you well, Zach.
Okay, great.
Go for it.
Yes, my name is Zach Vorheis. I am known as the Google whistleblower. I worked for Google for 8.5 years before discovering that they were engaging in horrendous censorship. I investigated and found out that it was a wide-ranging project called Machine Learning Fairness, which is essentially systemic racism, like critical race theory, embedded into an AI system that was being unleashed into the public unknowingly through Google search, YouTube search, and Google News. I collected 950 pages documenting this system, and I released this to the public in June of 2019, and then again on a larger full disclosure of August of 2019 through Project Veritas. I also sent this information to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division, and soon after they launched an investigation with the against Google, against their antitrust stuff, and also 52 state attorney generals did the same, and the city of New York. We're now at the election. Censorship and election rigging are incredible, and this is something that I warned the public about, and I feel that I was able to give the public a heads up on what was happening, and now we see it, and now I'm vindicated in my actions. Now, essentially, what I'm doing is I'm doing the final phase in this disclosure, which is justice. Our crowdfunding campaign, punchgoogle.com, garnered over $100,000, and we are bringing this case from the district court through that's where we are right now. So thank you for having me on the program.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Zach. And the Natural Solutions Foundation has been working with you to support your activities and disseminate your information. Tell us more about the system. Tell us more about the program that you discovered being woven into the searches and access patterns at Google. And also tell us if it ties to Knowledge Vault.
I don't know what knowledgeable is, but let me explain how. Oh, okay. So this all started in 2016 when Donald Trump won the election, and there was an hour-long interview election and giving their thoughts on it. And most of it has gone to what Sergey Brin has said and the chief financial officer, but less attention has been given to a question that was asked to CEO Sundar Pichai. And that question was, what was some of the things that Google did that were very effective? To which Sundar Pichai answered that the most effective thing was the use of machine learning in order to censor the fake news. Well, that turned out to be news to me. I thought Google's mission statement of organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful precluded the use of censorship of what they deemed to be fake news. So because Google is a company that is open, unlike siloed companies like Apple or the CIA, which are closed, I was able at Google to go in and see what my neighbors are working on. And so what I did is I dug in and I saw that the fake news department was essentially trying to define what fake news was. And the examples that they used all happened to be dealing with Hillary Clinton running weapons to Benghazi in order to arm ISIS, and also FBI officers that were dying because Clinton supposedly killed them. Now, what was interesting was that these headlines that were being used were actually fake news being pushed by disreputable organizations, but they were so close to the actual news that was happening that, well, how could you tell the difference? And if you're an AI system that is kind of dumb, they're not going to be able to tell the difference either between a deliberately sabotaged headline and a legitimate headline that is actually talking about the crimes of Hillary Clinton. And so what I realized is that because of this selective use of fake news having to do with Hillary Clinton, I decided that I was going to dig in and try to figure out what the censorship mechanism was going to be. And what I found was that this mechanism of censorship was called machine learning fairness. Now, what is machine learning? Machine learning is a type of AI. And you can think of AI as this very large circle. And in that, there's a whole bunch of different types of AIs. There's AIs that know how to play chess, for example. And then there's AIs that will drive your car. And we also have a type of AI that forms a very large circle of this AI system called machine learning. And the way that machine learning works is that you feed it a bunch of training data, and then it starts to generate its own mapping of how that training data is assigned certain labels. So, for example, if you were to give this system, let's say, 1 million instances of news articles, and half of them were labeled as fake news and half of them were not, then this AI system would literally teach itself English and then figure out the system.
Zach, tell us, yes, indeed. Tell us about your steps forward in taking this monstrosity down, starting with Punch Google.
Yeah, so as kind of my final act in this disclosure, I am suing Google on behalf of the content creators that were banned on October 15th. They're part of a plaintiff pool. I'm a consultant. I've organized this lawsuit. If people want to donate to the fund, they can do so at punchgoogle.com. Our first step on this is that we actually filed a TRO, which stands for Temporary Restraining Order, against Google a week before the election was, was happening, and it got assigned to pretty much the most partisan judge you could imagine, an Obama appointee, and this Judge Freeman. This judge was so partisan that Google didn't even bother to give evidence of why they were violating their terms of service with their content creators. They just gave some flimsy examples, and then the judge was like, I don't need to see any material evidence that Google violated its terms of service. I'm just going to trust them on their word. That was essentially, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's essentially what they said. And so they ruled against us. We expected that ruling against us. And that's the reason why we're going to take it to the court that really matters, which is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, a lot of you will remember that the Ninth Circuit was the most extreme leftist court in the nation. In fact, they called it the Ninth Circus Court. But something's happened in the last 4 years. And that something is that the judges have retired, and Trump has essentially flipped it with a conservative collection of judges. And now the Ninth Circuit is the most conservative court in all of the nation. We are appealing our case to this Ninth Circuit. We're going to amend our complaints, and we've got a new legal theory that we're going to posit, and I'd like to tell you about it, but I don't think that that's going to be in our interest to give Google a heads up on what exactly it is that we're going to be arguing. But just to suffice it to say that it's obvious that Google is removing these channels because they're trying to meddle in the election, as they've meddled in other elections across the world, and they're attempting to steer the narrative, even though they've promised that they wouldn't. When they went IPO, they promised to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. How can they do that when they're banning content for talking about Hunter Biden's laptop problems? This is something that is inexcusable, and we're going to bring this out in a major way, and we're going to get a fair hearing by the conservative Ninth Circuit. And if we don't get what we want there, then we're going to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas has indicated that he wants to have a Section 230 case brought before him. We're engineering this case to be that case that will redefine Section 230 and put limits on it. Google should not give itself the blanket immunity of being able to prevent any lawsuit when they're not willing to hold up their end of the bargain, which is to not apply any sort of political ideological filter on the content that they're filtering. And they've clearly decided that they're going to do that. They've decided to do that in order to meddle in the election. It was a gambit that's going to fail, and we're going to hit them as hard as we can, and we're going to forever change Section 230 so that this immunity shield that big tech currently enjoys will get stripped from their hands. And so what will happen is that if you're a technology company and you want to enjoy this liability shield, well, then you better not filter by ideological means. And if you do, then you're going to be treated as a publisher and be suable for defamation. So that's our strategy.
Zach, we've talked about Section 230, but for those people who may not remember or have heard us talk about Section 230, could you briefly define it?
Yeah, Section 230 was made in the 1996 Telecommunications Act, signed into law by President Clinton. One of the last minute changes that they made is that they included liability protections for these big tech giants that were eventually going to, like Google and Facebook, that would eventually come to dominate. And what they put in there was that, hey, some bad actors are making illegal content, and should your ISP, should Comcast be sued if there is illegal activity going through their networks? Because Comcast doesn't want to police its networks. They just want to give a service, and then whatever happens, happens. Like in the same way that your asphalt company should not be responsible for drug running being put through its, on the roads, ISP should not be liable for the traffic that goes through its networks either. So the FCC carved out an exemption called Section 230, which basically said, hey, big tech is not responsible for the content that goes over its system as long as that content provider is not giving an ideological filter. And so that was the protections that they did. Clearly, Google and Facebook and Twitter have been enjoying these immunity protections, and the only thing that they had to do in response was not ban people for political reasons. And they couldn't keep their hand out of the cookie jar. They had to meddle into politics. They had to violate their thing. But somehow they still believe that they've got these Section 230 protections, and that's clearly not the case. And it's been indicated by, the Supreme Court justice that they want to see a court case that does away with this and challenges the Section 230. We're going to do that. We're going to get it stripped. And that's what the community has helped us fundraise and donated to our cause in order to really change the law here and actually clarify the law and this bit of ambiguity. And I could take one more question because I'm pushing up against my next interview.
Okay, real quickly, what are your next steps? You're bringing the case into the Ninth Circuit, and when do you expect it to be heard, and how do we stay abreast?
You can stay abreast. We're doing updates at punchgoogle.com. We expect this case to hopefully be held or heard in January. California is probably going to have a full docket for the Ninth Circuit based upon all the election shenanigans that have been going on in the state. So we'll see. Will it be held in January? Will it be held in February? We don't know. Could even be held in March. But we hope to get this in the docket, filed, and in front of the judges by January by the soonest. And we're just going to hammer them. We're going to hammer Google. We got the whole network of people that support these content creators. Before the YouTube purge, it was estimated at between 10 to 30 million people. Now with the purge, that network's probably like 1 to 2 million people, but it's growing. And the people that are following this network are just pissed as hell. And they want to see vengeance. They want to see blood. And, with just a few networks talking about Punch Google, we had, 130,000. Now that we've got the full network behind us, we expect that we'll be able to get the full $1 million that we'll need to push this all the way to the Supreme Court if we need to do it. So, this isn't the last you've heard of me. This is the last you've heard of the Punch Google campaign. We're going to keep on fundraising this until the very end. We're going to change America for the better. So help me God.
Hear, hear. And I hope you'll be back on to give us more information.